He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillespie. Welcome to the Bamainsider YouTube channel. It's time for Recruiting with Andrew Bone, and you guys know him. Follow him on Twitter at Andrew J. Bone. And before we get into all of the updated news and what's going on in the world of Alabama recruiting, like and subscribe as you hang out with us. If you're in the comments section, we want to hear from you guys. Throw your comments in there, what you think about the recruiting process. Maybe comment on how you feel about what Andrew's got to say tonight. Hit the bell. That's a way that anytime we go live with our shows, you guys know about it, and like and subscribe. We're trying to get over 100,000 subscribers because we want to have as many subscribers as Alabama has people in the stadium when there's a football game at Bryant-Denny. So do that and hit the thumbs up. That's a great way of saying roll tide. He's the guru of Alabama recruiting. He's been at it for a long time, and he does a great job. Andrew Bone, what is going on, brother? How you been?
Been good, Mick. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Look, man, I'm excited. Bama's number one in recruiting. They're 4-0. They took on Vandy this week. I'm curious to hear what you thought about a few big-time recruits that were in town, some five-star guys that Alabama entertained.
Yeah, everybody's been kind of waiting for this Alabama Texas A&M game for the last several months. I mean, not just this season, but everybody's kind of been circling this game as the game to attend. Whether that's kids out all the way on the West Coast or in the Northeast or just in the state of Alabama. So many kids want to attend that Alabama Texas A&M game next weekend in Tuscaloosa. But we've seen some top recruits in town throughout the season. We saw Jalen Hale take his official visit a few weeks ago, or I guess about 4 weeks ago. I'm never a big fan of these official visits during the season, just because, for a school to recruit these guys, you just don't get as much time with these kids when they come on campus. Obviously, getting them on campus for the game day atmosphere is great, but I know that the Alabama coaching staff and most coaching staffs around the country like for these guys to come experience that game, but to come back for the official so that they can get Friday, Saturday, Sunday with these guys rather than really being focused on the team. But I think with Jalen Hill, it worked out pretty well because he was able to come in on Saturday, spend a little bit of extra time in Tuscaloosa, for that Utah State game. But we're going to see a lot of official visitors in town next weekend, and we saw some big unofficial visitors in Tuscaloosa this weekend. And it's kind of interesting because you had Quay Rousseau and James Smith, the top two recruits in the state of Alabama. Both guys uncommitted, are priority targets for Alabama, have been recruited for such a long time. So both of those guys coming in Tuscaloosa for the Vandy game, a lot of people probably look at that as, why would they come to that game and not come to Texas A&M? Now, they still might come back for Texas A&M, but they also wanted to visit Alabama when it wasn't just absolutely crazy. They wanted to spend a little bit more time with the coaching staff, get some good one-on-one time with Coach Saban and speak to him, and just be around the campus where it's not as crazy as it's going to be next weekend. But like I said, we might still see those guys in Tuscaloosa for the Texas A&M game. But great to always get Smith and Russo back in Tuscaloosa, because these are two prime prospects for Alabama, guys that they want, guys that they've been recruiting for a very long time, and also guys that aren't going to make a decision anytime soon. They are going to wait until December to decide, but we certainly expect them to get back to Tuscaloosa at least two more times. I know that they are planning on attending the Alabama-Mississippi State game. I believe that's on October 22nd, and then they will also save their official visit to Alabama for December. So that's always good to get those guys back on campus in December, for those full 3 days before they make their college commitments. But they were just in town, just two of them with one of their teammates. Wasn't a big family deal or anything like that. It was just two of them that came up, spent some time on campus on Saturday, and then headed back to Montgomery on Saturday evening. They didn't spend the night, but they had a great time. We had interviews with both of those guys on BamaInsider.com, so certainly encourage you to go check out those interviews with both of them. I mean, it's just all about building relationships with the Alabama coaching staff, which they have. They're continuing to grow more comfortable around those guys, and continuing to build relationships not only with the coaches but commitments with players. Obviously, they're close with some players on the team who are from Montgomery, but also guys that they've been around, throughout this whole recruiting process. But I do think that Alabama is in, I don't want to say great position for them right now, because there's still a long way to go, and they're still going to take some visits. They're going to enjoy this recruiting process. But if I did have to pick today for both of those guys, I would lean towards Alabama, but a long way to go in the recruiting cycle for both of these guys. We know how things can quickly change in the recruiting landscape of things, but these are two guys that Alabama definitely does not want to miss on in this cycle. And as of right now, I don't think they will. Now, other schools are certainly involved: Georgia, Florida, Ohio State, Auburn. They visited Auburn twice already this season. But as we kind of see with Auburn, I mean, who knows what things are going to look like down there in the next few months. I mean, and I think that's something that they're obviously paying very close attention to. James Smith, really likes Ohio State. Quay, probably not as much, but he's at least going to go up there and see things and see how he likes it up there. Florida has certainly been a top contender. They visited down there back in July. They really like the Gators a lot. And Florida, recruiting really well right now. They've recruited the state of Alabama well. But then I think Alabama's biggest competition is probably Georgia. They've visited Georgia several times, including multiple times during the summer. So there's definitely a lot of interest in the Bulldogs. So in my opinion, it's an Alabama-Georgia battle, but I wouldn't really rule out anybody in that top five. Now, they have a top six that includes Alabama State. Don't think either one of them are going to end up at Alabama State, but always got to show some love to your hometown school, and you never know, they may end up taking an official visit over there at some point. But in the end, I still think it comes down to Alabama, Georgia for James Smith, Quay Rousseau. We'll see how these other official visits go over the next few months, but Alabama's certainly in a good spot with both of those guys right now.
Alabama has had, Bone, just an abundance of prospects, blue chip guys, just in the state this year. And we knew, for the last couple of years, that this was going to be the year that Alabama was going to really want the school, the university, to lock down the borders as best they can. They have 6 in-state commitments right now. That's including 2 5-stars, Tony Mitchell and Jaleel Hurley. Kind of give us an update on, where things stand.
Well, obviously they really hope that they can get James Smith and Quay Rousseau on board. I mean, that would, if they got both of those guys, it would give them 8 in-state commitments, and kind of along the average of in-state guys that they normally land. I mean, it usually ranges anywhere between 5 and 10 in-state guys in each recruiting cycle. Because they're always going to go after the best of the best type players. I mean, it's not like they're going to go after some guy that could barely get an offer from them. They're going to go after the guys that they really want and they can prioritize. And they've the thing about the state of Alabama is they have carefully evaluated, and they carefully evaluate each guy. But in the state of Alabama, you just know, I feel like so much more about kids because of the connections that you have in different communities, whether that's head coaches, guidance counselors, teachers, people that are just living in the city. You have a lot more connections in the state of Alabama. So, they carefully examine every single one of these kids, from, an athletic standpoint to an academic standpoint to a personal standpoint. How are these kids off the field? What type of leaders are they? What kind of person are they in their community? So they try to know everything they possibly can know about these guys, and they've done a really good job, obviously, recruiting the state of Alabama this year. A couple misses, which were a little surprising, with Kelby Collins going to Florida, Peter Woods going to Clemson. I don't know which one of those two are more surprising. Maybe Peter Woods, just because he had been to Tuscaloosa so many times, but both of them grew up diehard Alabama fans. And we went into this recruiting cycle saying that, and this is probably back, I'd say February, even, maybe even before that, if there were 2 guys in the state of Alabama that I felt most confident in Alabama landing, it would have been Kelby Collins and Peter Woods. I think most Alabama fans, most Alabama reporters, and most national reporters would have probably said the same thing. But as you kind of get into the recruiting cycle and kids take visits and they start, trying to figure out, what might be best for their future. Kelby Collins and and Peter Woods decided that two other schools were a better fit for them. But as we know, nothing's ever over until signing day. And those two guys are still heavily recruited. We're going to see Kelby back in Tuscaloosa, next weekend for his official visit. Maybe we see Peter in Tuscaloosa at some point, but as we know, Clemson has a pretty strict rule about taking visits to other schools. Not taking visits to other schools when you are committed to them. So it might be a little bit tougher for Peter, but we'll see how things end up playing out over the next few months. But obviously, overall, Alabama's got a great recruiting class, especially in state. They pretty much hit on all their other in-state targets this year, and I don't think they're finished yet. I mean, you look at Alabama may have lost Peter Woods and Kelby Collins, but you look over in the state of Georgia, whereas Alabama's, not over yet, but they do have 3 of the top 4 players in the state of Georgia committed to them.
Wow.
And Caleb Downs, Justice Haynes, and Dylan Lonergan. So, it happens to a lot of schools. Alabama's had a lot of success recruiting out of state. They can go to California to land the top player. They can go to Georgia to land the top player after Georgia wins the national championship. They're still going into Texas. They're still going into Florida and having a lot of success. So not surprised that, a lot of other schools have come into Alabama. Obviously, they're recruiting really well, but they're also taking some guys away from Alabama, and that's going to happen. I think people are just shocked that it has happened, but it's going to happen, and Alabama is going to continue to go to other states and land the best players from those states as well.
He's Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillespie. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. That's a way of saying roll tide, and hit the bell. When we're live, you're going to know it, and you can hang out with us. Comment section, great to see you guys as well. Keep them coming as we talk Alabama football recruiting. Alabama right now with the On3 #1 recruiting class, and they added 2 guys to it last week, and they're trying to add more to it now, and they still have, about 7 spots, right, Bone? And this weekend they took on Vandy, and Desmond Ricks was there, #1 cornerback in the country from ING, and Edric Houston was there, the #1 edge rusher from Buford High School in Georgia. How'd it go?
We had 2 really elite, juniors in Tuscaloosa. We're going to see a lot of top juniors in town next weekend, but, getting Desmond Ricks back on campus once again was huge for the Tide. This is the #1 cornerback in the 2024 recruiting class. His teammate, Ellis Robinson, who is the #2 cornerback in the 2024 class, is actually going to be in Tuscaloosa next weekend. But Desmond, who's originally from Virginia, visited Alabama this past weekend with his parents. Had a great time. Got a little, a lot of FaceTime with Coach Saban and Travaris Robinson. I mean, this is a priority target for Alabama. I definitely think that Alabama is sitting in that top 2, top 3 spot with him. And we're likely going to see him back in Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl in November. So getting Desmond Ricks in town twice during the college football season, obviously huge moving forward. But yeah, this is definitely a guy that Alabama wants. They're going to continue to heavily recruit, and I think they're going to have a really good chance to land him. And then, Edric Houston, another, outstanding football player from the state of Georgia, Buford High School, one of the top football programs in the not only in the state of Georgia but in the entire country. They produce a lot of great football talent. There's 3 players on Alabama's team right now who come from Buford High School. So this is definitely a place that Alabama is very familiar with. They've recruited really well there, and they have a lot of good connections. And Edric actually received his offer from Alabama last October. So he's been on Alabama's radar for a long time. And this is a 6'4", 255-pound defensive end, but says he's going to play that edge rusher position. Says that Alabama's recruiting him to be similar to Will Anderson in their scheme, and he really loves it in Tuscaloosa. Visited for Junior Day earlier this year, then came back for the game. So this was another great trip for him. Said he really hit it off with the Alabama coaching staff. Once again, said he spent a lot of time with Coleman Hutzler, the outside linebackers coach, but said he also spent a lot of time with those Buford guys, Seth McLaughlin, Isaiah Bond, and Jake Pope. He said those guys are recruiting me hard, almost every day. So definitely good to get Edric back into Tuscaloosa. It's always good to get, a top 25 overall player in the country on campus for another visit. So, Alabama has 3 commitments in that 2024 recruiting class already. They certainly aren't being bashful about, recruiting guys, spending a lot of effort. I feel like, in years past, we used to see Alabama really focus on the seniors and give the seniors all the attention until the early signing period or signing day. And I feel like they've really stepped things up as far as recruiting underclassmen and really targeting guys. We're starting to see a lot of 2025 guys in Tuscaloosa throughout the season. And I feel like, they're starting to shift a little bit more towards recruiting underclassmen. We always see these offers that get extended early. There's guys who are freshmen in high school right now that have offers, but they don't get as contacted as much. Juniors, they can't get contacted until September the 1st. But even in years past, I haven't really seen the amount of attention from the Alabama staff on these juniors until a little bit later on in the year. So now they've really started to step up their efforts and building these relationships and building these contacts. And maybe it's because they've seen other schools do it. I talked to a lot of kids that have constantly told me, yeah, I talked to this school or that school, and this is a couple in the last couple of years. They say, yeah, I talked to this school and that school. I hadn't talked to Alabama as much, but I know how they are. They're going to start talking to me a lot more after signing day. Well, based on all the conversations that I've had with these 2024 guys already, it seems like Alabama's really stepped it up and really started to build a lot of connections with these guys already.
Yeah, that's a competitive business right now for the Crimson Tide to stay at the top of the pack recruiting. It sounds like it's just getting to be earlier and earlier when you start working with these guys. With that said, Bone, there were a few in-state recruits in the 2024 class that Alabama has targeted that could announce sometime soon. Who are these guys, and what do you think?
Well, I think 2 in-state guys are probably going to be deciding here. One a little bit sooner than the other. One has a commitment date of set for November the 6th. But Kavion Henderson out of Leeds High School, another edge type player. He's 6'3", about 245 pounds right now. But he is being recruited by Alabama as an edge rusher. He was in Tuscaloosa this past weekend. It was his second visit to Alabama this season already, and he's coming back next week for the Texas A&M game. He's going to be announcing a commitment on November the 6th. Alabama is in really good position, in my opinion. Obviously, you look at their recruiting prediction machine, it's got Auburn right there. But I think that, Auburn was considered the favorite prior to his offer from Alabama about a month ago. So I think things have really shifted in Alabama's favor. Got a chance to talk to him after the visit. He went down there with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's family, all Alabama fans. So that they're wanting to see him play for the Crimson Tide, but I'm sure they're wanting him to make the best decision for his future regardless. But I think Alabama's in really good position with Kavion Henderson. And then, another guy that we're probably going to see announced pretty soon is Mario Craver, wide receiver from Clay Chalkwell High School. One of the best playmakers in the state of Alabama. I think he's probably going to decide, probably within the next week or two, maybe even sooner than that. I do think Tennessee has done a really good job recruiting him, throughout the entire process. It says 5'9", 150 there. I think he's a little bit bigger than that. That may be a little bit old, but he really shined at Alabama's camp during the summer, earned an offer. This is definitely a guy that Alabama likes a lot. But we might see him end up committing somewhere else first. I think Tennessee's probably got the edge with Mario right now, and I think he really likes it up in Knoxville. Eli's got a teammate who signed there last year, who's also a wide receiver, so they got a really good connection. And would not be surprised we see him announced for Tennessee. That's probably my prediction right now, but I do think Alabama is going to continue to recruit Mario for the next several months. Definitely somebody that we're going to continue to follow as time goes on.
Is Tennessee, you say Tennessee, I haven't heard Tennessee's name in a lot of competitions with Alabama recruiting over the last 10 years. I mean, To'o, right? And then look how that turned out. Are they starting to make any in-ground as far as getting up into that, Georgia and Texas, Alabama, Ohio State range where it feels like it's always those four schools for the top players?
Well, we'll see. I think that, Tennessee being able to get an elite quarterback on its commitment list, 5-star quarterback Nico Iamaleava. Tennessee's obviously recruiting, pretty well right now, better than, what they probably were a few years ago. It's still not the Tennessee that we used to see when Philip Fulmer was there. I mean, they were signing, top 3 recruiting classes every single year. I used to remember, reading those super prep magazines back in the day and seeing Tennessee sign these just absolute studs from all across the country. And, they're certainly hoping to get back there, being one of the top 10 programs in the country right now. On the recruiting rankings, but in the college football rankings, obviously they're doing pretty well. They're going to have a big game in Knoxville next month when Alabama rolls into town. So I'm sure that's going to be a pretty electric atmosphere, and we'll see how Tennessee continues to do. But winning helps everything. Winning's going to help recruiting. Winning's going to help get more fans to to support your program, and that's what Tennessee's trying to do right now. And I think it's always good when Tennessee has a good football team. You're always wanting, these competitive games against each other. I mean, they hadn't been really competitive against Alabama. Of course, you still want to win all those games, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot more fun when they're a little bit more competitive rather than 55-10, 55-17. But we've been used to that, so we'll see what Tennessee is able to do over the course of the next few years. See if they're possibly able to get that monkey off their back and beat Alabama again, because this sure has been a long time. But with Nick Saban, the way that they recruit, the talent that they've got, it's certainly going to still be an uphill battle, for the Vols against the Crimson Tide.
He's Andrew Bone. This is Recruiting with Andrew Bone, as we do every Tuesday, 8:00 right here on the Bamainsider YouTube channel. Subscribe, thumbs up. The thumbs up means Roll Tide. That's a great way of telling Bone that you appreciate all the nuggets and information on Alabama recruiting. Hit the bell so that you know that we are live. And don't forget, if you want the best of Bone, it's not on this show. It's Bamainsider.com. We give you some stuff here, but we leave a lot of that for our subscribers. Bamainsider.com. You get all the nuggets with Bone there. You get them first there, and it's a really affordable rate, $1 for an entire year. Now that we're part of On3, we want you to join us at On3. $1 for an entire year. Andrew Bone, all of the On3 recruiting experts help feed into that. Joseph Hastings, who works with Bone as well. You got Clint Lamb, who's our team writer. You got Jimmy Stein on the message boards. All of that for $1. That seems like a great deal to me, Bone.
It seems pretty good to me. I mean, I've definitely paid for worse for $1. I paid for probably hadn't paid for anything better than $1. So I certainly would jump on that deal right now, because it's really hard to beat. I mean, we every single day we're our staff's on there, talking to fans, interacting. We're not just talking sports. I mean, we're talking, not politics, but we talk a lot about a lot of different things on the site. And it's been a lot of fun interacting with fans, whether that's during an NFL football game or whatever it might be. So certainly encourage you to join Bamainsider.com. Come on there, talk to us. If you have a recruiting question, you can ask me any time of the day, and pretty much I'm going to be on there and responding within, about 20 minutes. So it's hard to beat that price of, you're an Alabama fan, certainly encourage you to subscribe, because it's not just recruiting; it's team coverage, football, basketball, recruiting. But being part of the community, in my opinion, is it's hard to beat, especially being on that message board and interacting with the thousands of Alabama fans that we currently have on the site.
All right, last thing we'll talk about today on Recruiting with Bone is not this week's game against Arkansas, but the next home game, Texas A&M. You figure there's going to be some big-time guys there, Bone. And we've seen Alabama with two huge commitments the last week or two, right? Jalen Hale, Jordan Renaud both made their decisions last week. Who's going to be there for Texas A&M, which has just this big buzz to it because of all the comments in the offseason that were made by Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, and the fact that Texas A&M beat Alabama last year?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if the game's lost a little bit of its luster just because Texas A&M lost that game a few weeks ago, but they're still going to roll into town. As likely a top 20 team in the country. I think with the comments between Coach Saban and Jimbo, that certainly has recruits wanting to be in Tuscaloosa and to experience it. We have a really big list of recruits who are scheduled to visit Alabama next weekend. And some of those right there, I wouldn't worry too much about those on the screen right now because some of those have already changed. As far as some big visitors are concerned, it's going to be probably around 5 or 6 officials that are going to be in Tuscaloosa. You have Keon Keeley, the 5-star edge rusher out of Tampa. He's going to be in town. You got Cormani McClain, the number 1 cornerback in the country out of Lakeland High School in Florida. You have Deuce Robinson, the top tight end in the country out of Arizona, also going to be in Tuscaloosa. I mean, it is going to be an absolutely stacked event with a lot of big-time recruits who are going to be in Tuscaloosa. We have a complete list on Bamainsider.com right now of who's all expected in Tuscaloosa, and we're going to continue to update that list over the course of the next week and a half. So there's a lot of big names that are expected. We could potentially even see a few commitments happen after next weekend. And maybe may not happen right on Saturday or Sunday, but could happen shortly after that. So be sure to stay tuned to Bamainsider.com. We're going to have breakdowns throughout the entire week next week, leading up to it, with all the guys that are going to be coming into Tuscaloosa. 5 stars, top 100 type players, but we'll also be looking at a lot of the top juniors and even top sophomores who are going to be invited to the game next weekend, who plan on attending. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really busy, and we hope to see you over at Bamainsider.com.
Right. And is it becoming, are we kind of rolling into the stretch run of this recruiting class and recruiting season now, Bone? When does that happen?
Alabama's currently sitting with 23 commitments. People just, look at it and say, well, there's only, a couple more spots. Well, probably a few more than a couple spots. I still think Alabama is going to sign anywhere between, 29, 30. I can't imagine they're going to sign 31, but you can, go up a little bit, this year. You just can't go over that 85 total scholarship number on your football team. So we'll see what happens. Alabama doesn't like turning down great players. So if there's a great player that don't pay much attention to, well, it sounds bad, but I wouldn't worry too much about a recruit's rank. If we're telling you this guy is a priority target for Alabama, that's what it means. He's a priority target. He could be a 3-star. He could be a 4-star. He could be obviously a 5-star. And there's a lot of 5-star guys that are out there. But a lot of these guys, they're in the middle of their high school football season. They're probably going to wait for the most part until December to decide. If they waited this long, most of them will wait until December when they can decide and take some more official visits, because there's going to be official visits that are going to happen in the month of December before the early signing period. I don't know how it's going to shake out over the next couple of months leading up to December as far as commitments are concerned. We'll probably see a few more happen. Nobody that's actually set up a commitment date just yet. So, but a guy like Keon Keeley, wouldn't be surprised if he made a decision sometime in October, early November. David Hobbs, who's a 5-star defensive lineman out of North Carolina, he's probably going to decide before December. Jaron Hamilton, who's a 4-star wide receiver from Jacksonville, he's probably going to make a decision, sometime between October and November. So those are some guys that we're going to watch closely as far as 2023 commitments are concerned and decisions are concerned. So still a lot of guys that are out there. We've mentioned a lot of them: Quaver, James Smith. Those guys are going to wait until that early signing period before they decide. Cormani McLean says he's going to wait until December, but we'll see. A couple guys that, I'll name one guy that I think could decide possibly in the next month, and that's Arion Carter, a 4-star linebacker from Smyrna High School in Tennessee. Received an offer from Alabama a few weeks ago. Currently committed to Memphis, but we have seen his offer list absolutely skyrocket over the course of the last few weeks, really ever since that Alabama offer came through. Just a ton of offers. I mean, USC, LSU, Florida, Michigan, and so on, Tennessee. Visited Knoxville this past weekend. He was in Tuscaloosa 2 weeks ago. He's going to be back in Tuscaloosa for the A&M game next weekend. Grew up a diehard Alabama fan, so we're going to keep an eye on Arion Carter's second visit in the last couple weeks to Alabama next week.
Awesome. Well, look, Bone, always great hanging out, guys. You as well for hanging with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel and talking recruiting. Bone is the best in the business. Give him a thumbs up. That's your way of saying roll tide as we talk about the Crimson Tide and everything going forward with recruiting. We're going to try to get 500 likes on this show, and you guys can make it happen there as well. And subscribe. That way you're part of this awesome channel that you guys made, and we appreciate you more than you know. We've got news and notes coming up on Wednesday. We got the tailgate show, which Bone and I will get back together as we always do on that Friday night from 6 to 8. Jay Barker and I will be on after the football game against Arkansas, right after the game here on Saturday. Anytime Alabama's coach Nick Saban speaks, we'll have that. Any news breaks, we'll have that for you as well right here. For Chris Daughtry, who's the man behind the scene, and my man Andrew Bone, I'm Mick Gillespie. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys, and we'll talk to you again next Tuesday at 8 o'clock with recruiting with our man Andrew Bone. Roll Tide.